Well, please take your seats, everybody. We are going to get started. And I'm Leslie Singh. I've been a member of the Royal Historical Society for quite a while. And at one stage I was serving on council, which was a really great privilege. And I had a book launch here last October. So I haven't seen a lot of the Commissariat building this year due to outside engagements, but it is lovely to be back here, and I'm sure all of you feel the same because I can see a lot of familiar faces in the audience. So I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land in which we are telling our stories today, with the awareness that many stories have been told here over the millennia, and we're part of an amazing series of storytelling. And today's a little bit different. We're going to have a speaker telling us about Islam and Islam communities in southeast Queensland. So that's a real treat. Our speaker is Zerrin Afza, and she's from Bangladesh. I'll tell you a little bit about her in a moment. But before I get into her bio, I'd like to just ask if anyone here can remember their first experience, if they've had one, of hearing an Islamic call to worship. Because I remember very clearly, I was in Malaysia and Thailand when I was about 22. I saved up after teaching for a year, and in Malaysia I heard this very powerful call, and it was the natural human voice. It wasn't on loudspeakers, which is happening all over the world now. A lot of the calls in Hindi and in Islamic religions are all in broadcast over very, very loud speakers, I've heard from now on. But in those days, it was just a man going up to the top of the mosque and calling out. And I remember an extraordinary feeling of thinking, wow, so this is a different way of worshipping. This is a different way of calling people to worship. Because I was just a Queensland girl used to the Methodist Church, as it happened, and a Christian religion. So it was my first encounter with a different religion. So anybody remember their first? Yeah, it's very memorable, isn't it? So yeah, so there's a few of us who've certainly travelled and have come across Islamic culture outside of our shores. But I'll just talk about what Zerrin is going to talk about today. So she's a PhD student at the University of Queensland, has been here for 4 years with her husband, who's also a researcher in the social sciences. And they join us from Bangladesh. They have been widely travelled and enjoyed travelling in Australia. They have a daughter of 9 years old who's going to a Queensland school. And her topic today is how Muslim communities in southeast Queensland transmit religious knowledge and practice across generations, knowing that they are in a minority context. So that sounds very interesting. How does identity, religiosity, and a sense of belonging get transferred from one generation to another? And it's also within the context of the Muslim diaspora and global Islam. And of course, those of us who've travelled, for example, India, we know there's a very sizable Muslim population in India, and we've probably encountered it in every part of the world now because there is a diaspora in every part of the world. So welcome. Please come up, and we're going to enjoy your presentation. At the end, I'll be passing around the microphone for questions, and I'll also be mentioning further events for the Royal Historical Society. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Leslie, and welcome everyone to my presentation. I would also like to thank the Royal Historical Society Queensland for this opportunity, wonderful opportunity. I'm actually privileged, I must say. Before going to my presentation, again, I would like to give a little background of myself so that you understand why I choose this topic, why Islam in Queensland. So as Leslie has mentioned, I'm from Bangladesh, and Bangladesh is a Muslim majority country where almost 95% people are Muslim. So when I came here with different tag. So tag number 1, I'm a migrant. Tag number two, I'm coming from a Muslim majority country, and I myself also practicing Muslim. I'm coming here with my family, so the family dynamics also later helped me a lot. That's why I need to mention it. And also, I'm a woman. My gender also impacted my stay here and my study. So when I came here in 2022, the condition of my scholarship was that I need to do something with Islam. Doesn't matter what kind of investigation topic I will choose, but I must do something with Islam or the Muslim community. So at the same time, I was settling down. Finding out a house was really difficult in 2022. We didn't get any house in St. Lucie area, so we moved into Slacks Creek and Underwood area. And then I particularly didn't know that is the area where majority of the Muslim population lives in. So without knowingly, I settled down in an area where majority of the Muslim community lives in. Uh, and there are multiple mosques around that area. But as I have mentioned, like I didn't know this is the base area for the Muslims. So what we did as a family, we started to go to the local mosque to find out who else are living here. And also from my study perspective, I do not wanted to limit my study within the Bangladeshi community, but I wanted to see and learn about the wider Muslim community. That is another reason why I started to go to the mosque, the local mosque. So again, you will understand why I have mentioned the background of myself. Coming from a Muslim majority country, the experience of mosque was quite different here for me. In back home, though it is a Muslim majority country, we as a women do not frequently go to the mosque in Bangladesh, but here anyone can go to the mosque any time of the day. And also, I have observed during my visit to the Slacks Creek Mosque, the initial days visit, the mosque is not only a place for the worship or only the religious purposes, but it is a place for social gathering. It is a place for networking. It is a place for even sometimes economic opportunities also. So I have observed people go to the mosque when they are happy. People go to the mosque when they are sad. People go to the mosque when they need anything. People go to the mosque if they want to celebrate something like the community event, get together, or anything. Even sometimes I have noticed the parents took their children into the mosque so that the children can interact with other Muslim kids. So whenever I was, observing all these things, I was curious to know why mosque? Because in my head, mosque is something very sacred space. You only go there to pray, but not for this kind of interactions. And at the same time, how the family dynamics work for me. As a mother, I was looking for some spaces where I can give my daughter to learn about Islam, because she came here at her age of around 6, but she was 5 plus, not completely 6. So that is the time when we start teaching about the religion at home, but I was not that expert to teach her by myself. So I was looking for some spaces where she can go and learn about Islam, the sacred book, the principles of prayer, all these things. So suddenly it came into my mind, why not I do something where I will be able to trace down how these people who are living here for a long time still practicing Islam, still know how to read the Quran, still know how to pray, still maintain the gender segregation of Islam and the clothing principle of Islam in a Muslim minority context, most importantly in a Western setting. So that is why the family dynamic is important for me. And also, maybe for many of you, it will be interesting to know in a mosque, normally it is not the norm that women talk with the men. So there is separate sections for the men women prayer. Yes, I can go to the prayer section and talk with any woman, but if it is not urgent or it is not emergency, I am not supposed to talk or go to the men's section. So this section of the mosque was explored by my husband. So he used to talk into the men's section and I used to talk into the women's section and ask the same question. Why mosque? Why not some park? Why not some other places? Why you always come to celebrate or meet people into the mosque? So from that point of view, I started to realize, yes, I need to know about all the pockets, all the spaces where Muslims goes to learn about their religion and what are the spaces they have created in this country where they are minority. So this is the beginning. And I will say this is like troublesome beginning for me. I realized later because when I was exploring all the pockets, then I realized I have to do it in a generational wise. Otherwise, I will miss out the pattern or the ways how the first generation of Muslim migrant used to practice their religion, Islam here. So this is a little bit of the background or why I choose this topic. And this image, whenever I was Googling Islam or Muslim community in Queensland, this is the image used to pop up into my laptop screen. Even before coming here, I was curious to know how the Muslim community looks like, who they are, where they are from, and this is the image. So this image also gave me, before coming here, a sort of perspective about what is the Muslim life here. You can see the struggle, you can see the hardship, but at the same time, you can identify him with some particular features, the beard, the cap, with all those things. So these are the features and these are the things were in my mind, like okay, Muslims in Queensland, they have this is sort of thing, and they are the cameliers, only the cameliers. And who are the cameliers? If you little bit do research, you will find only the Afghan people or the people from Afghanistan, they are the cameliers. So with this image, I came here. And then things started to change, particularly when I see the wider community, then things started to change. But before that, I will like to say why from the Queensland I choose only Southeast Queensland, because covering the whole Queensland, it is quite impossible by a 4 year of study where you get only 2 years to do the field work. So eventually I took the Southeast Queensland, and Southeast Queensland is kind of the hub for the Muslim community. When I started this work, there was almost 15 mosques into the Southeast Queensland area. But in these 2 years, I'm sure now there is 20 plus mosques. And also the almost every mosque, they have their own Arabic Sunday school or like after school classes. So with the mosque number, the Arabic learning schools are similar. And then the Southeast Queensland, they have Islamic schools, two Islamic schools with 4 campuses. And into this area, Muslim organizations like Muslim Women Association, Human Appeal, all these operated within the Southeast Queensland border. And also the Imam Council, which is the highest body of the Muslim community of Queensland, is located into the Southeast Queensland. And the Muslim graveyard, which is into the Mount Gravatt Cemetery, the largest section of the Muslim graveyard is also located within the Southeast Queensland. So I choose the Southeast Queensland from the whole Queensland, but in general, uh, from the last ABS census, almost 60,000 people affiliated themselves with Islam in Queensland, overall Queensland, and Queensland is home of some prominent Muslim families which have now fifth or sixth generation of Muslim Australian. So this family is important into the study or into the, in terms of if anyone wants to know about Islam, they should know about these families also, because these are the families who first migrated here and they spread it out throughout the Queensland and Australia. And now they have like fifth, sixth generation. I would say some of the families, they have seventh generation even. And still they are practicing Islam, and they facilitate different kind of initiatives which promote Islam here in Queensland. And two of the policies, white Australian policy and the multicultural policy, they have shaped the pattern of practice Islam in Queensland. So these are the reason why Queensland, why Islam, and why Southeast Queensland. And Southeast Queensland is kind of the place from where Islam is spreaded out throughout the Queensland. So this is kind of, as I have mentioned, the hub. And in my work, I have outlined my work, as I have said, I choose to do it in a generational basis. So I have early stage, middle stage, and late stage. In all stages, I wanted to see how they started to practice Islam here, how they started to establish the mosque here, and why. And in throughout all these stages, I have also tried to understand how they accommodate their Australian identity here. Because if you ask very young people born and brought up here in Australia but coming from a Muslim background, ask him or her, what is your nationality or how do you identify yourself? When I was doing my interview, I have noticed this. They will definitely answer like, I'm a Muslim Australian or I'm an Australian Muslim. So they never separate their two identities. They do not say like, I'm Muslim only or I'm Australian, but majority of my respondent, they said I'm an Australian Muslim or I'm a first Muslim and then Australian. So throughout these phases, different phases, they actually nurtured the Australian identity and they tried to adopt it, because there was different policies which was sometimes difficult for them to practice their religion or to establish the mosque or the Islamic societies here, but still they have tried to mitigate all these challenges and try to adhere to both identities, Islam, Muslim, and Australian. So if now I little bit speak about the early stage, which actually started from the 1800, from the 1950. So this is the first mosque. Unfortunately, I forgot to bring the present look of the mosque, but this is the mosque which was first established here by the first generation of Muslim migrant. In 1908, they established this mosque. This mosque now, if you Google Holland Park Mosque, this is the mosque. But when they established the mosque name was, this is interesting, Muhammadin Mosque. So as previously I have mentioned, most of the Muslim people, they were labeled as Afghans without recognizing their different ethnic background. Like Muslim people came here from India, from Pakistan, from Balochistan, from all over the South Asia, but they were only labeled as Afghans. Just like that, in the early stage, Muslims were only known by Muhammadin, because Muhammad is the prophet in Islam, and the European and white people, they used to know Muslims as a Muhammadin sect. Not even a religion, but Muhammadin is the tag. So when they established this mosque, this is an interesting thing. They were all Muslims, but they were reluctant to give the name of the mosque as a mosque or masjid. Masjid is the Arabic word, the English is mosque. But they put Muhammadin in front of the mosque. They did it because they thought then people will identify themselves separately. Otherwise, it is not possible by the people to recognize them as a separate religion or separate group of people. So they put the Muhammadin in front of the mosque just to identify themselves as a separate group. And it is also interesting, the relationship between United Kingdom and Australia is quite close. And when the newspaper articles choose the term Muhammadin to identify the Muslims, they actually took this term from the newspapers of United Kingdom. Because by then in UK, a lot of Muslim migrants also settled down there, and into the UK's newspaper and official documents, Muslims were labeled as Muhammadin, not as Muslim. So the Australian community, white community, European community, and Australian community, they also took that term Muhammadin. And Muslims were as a first generation Muslims who travel here as a labor, who were helping with the construction, who were helping with the telegraph line establishment, they didn't know how to establish their own identity as a Muslim. Even some of the family members I have interviewed, uh, they just took the name which was given by the immigration officer, even not their main family name they have. So one of the family members who were identified as an Aryan back home in India and in Pakistan, but when they came here, uh, they were not able to give the spelling of their name Aryan because they were not educated. So the immigration officer said, "Okay, I'm writing you Rain." From Aryan, they become Rain, Rane. So still now the family, they carry on that title given by the immigration officer, not by the family members. Also the Din family, they were known as some, Din is a very common title in India. And South Asia, in fact, Din is a very common title. But when they came here, most of the people, they didn't know they have to have separate last name and first name. So they just said like, okay, my name is Ali. Then the immigration officer asked, Ali what? Then again, another one came, my name is Yusuf. The immigration officer asked, Yusuf what? So they didn't know how to say it or what to say. So the immigration officer put din to everyone almost. Yeah. So into the community, you will see the prominent families, Muslim families, they have only few titles: Din, Rain, Hausen, and Gos. And also that time, the early stage, it was difficult for them to get any job with their own name, like Yusuf. So they used to change their name. From Yusuf, they become Yaqub or Jacob. From like one name I remember, Ethan, he was called something else. But to get the job, they used to take the European name with the immigration officer's given title. So it's like Tommy Dean, but maybe he was something else. And all the documented, all the papers are in the name of Tommy Dean. So this was the first generation Muslim migrant stories. So eventually they thought we need to practice our religion because some of the group, they were settling down here into the Holland Park area. So they thought we need to have some space where we can gather, at least we can pray. And as a Muslim, there is a certain type of food requirement, which is called halal, or the food needs to be slaughtered, particularly if it is animal meat, it needs to be slaughtered in a way which is permissible in Islam. So from that need, they thought, well, when we are settling down here, we have bought the houses and we have our occupation here. Why not we have our own space for prayer? So they established this Muhammadan mosque. And also in this stage, due to the white Australian policy, most of these first generation people, they were not supposed to bring their spouses from back home. Maybe this is a very common history of migration in Australia. Uh, it was same for them also. But the difference was this group of people, they were very keen to practice their religion, particularly the 5 times of prayer and the food, the halal food intake. So many of them, when they came here without spouses or any female family member from back home, they get married here with the non-Muslim white women. So what happened, they used to stay outside, the male family members, for the livelihood for a long time. And the kids who are born here, they became kind of in the mix of, or in the, two world perspective they used to get. White world perspective and the Muslim world perspective. They only get the religious vibe when the fathers were at home. But when the fathers were outside for a long time, for months, for the livelihood purpose, there was no religion. So the parents thought, the fathers thought, we should have a mosque where at least kids can go. But the struggle was, during these early stages, the World War happens. So during the World War, there was high surveillance, particularly to the groups, migrant groups, particularly Muslims, because some of them were coming from countries where they have affiliation with the Ottoman Empire, who were the enemy into the world wars. So the surveillance was very high during this early stage. So many families, they were not able to practice their religion, and also many families, they were not able to go to the mosque because of the high surveillance. So what happened, I did interview from the family members of the first generation migrant. So one of the son actually from the first imam of the Holland Park Mosque, or the religious leader of the Holland Park Mosque, he was saying me, we only knew Islam as an Indian religion. We do not know that Islam is a separate religion. Then I asked, like, why Indian religion? Why like this? Then he answered, because my father is from India and only we get to know about this religion when he is around the home. So for me and for my friends, it was Indian religion. And he also mentioned, because he had a German mother, he also mentioned for this kind of mixed marriages, Islam was almost lost here by 1940. Islam was almost lost here. We only go to the mosque when fathers are here. We only pray when fathers used to home. That's it. Islam was almost lost. So the early stage, even you can see from the newspaper clipping, it says Queensland Muhammadin. So they spelled it differently. So there was no specific spelling for them, but the term they used to tag Muslims or identify Muslim was Muhammadin, because of the prophet, which is not the name of the religion itself. So this was the thing happening into the early stage, at the initial early stage. But later, from the 1950s, things started to change a little bit. Things started to change because of different policies, and also because of the new migrants' arrival, particularly from the European Muslims. They started to arrive. So the person here, Isaac Imovic, he is a Bosnian Muslim. He came here in 1949. He was a very, and also, sorry, I forgot to mention, before him, before Isaac Imovic, most of the people who came here, they were not trained up religiously to become, imam. Imam is the Muslim Arabic term, which means religious leader. So there was no Islamic scholar here. There was no one who is trained up as an imam who can lead the prayer or who can teach the Arabic. But when he came here, he was educated, he was a university graduate, and he was a judge back in Bosnia. But he came here because of the war and everything. So when he came here, he started to add a new dynamic into this community. He started to put his knowledge here. He started to teach them, no, this is the proper way how you should pray. This is the proper way how you should pronunciate one Arabic word. So he was kind of a change agent here in this community. So he started to came, and he also wrote a book I will show later on. But the changes started to happen with the European Muslims arrival in this community, Southeast Muslim community, which started to happen after 1940. And also what happened, when the Second World War was over, the Dean family, which is still now one of the richest family here, Dean family, they had already established a very good relationship with the government. So they negotiate with the government and they bring some of their female family members. And Nasib Bibi Dean, she is the first woman from the Dean family who came here in Southeast Queensland. And the informal education for the girl children here started with her. So she used to teach the little Muslim kids, particularly the girls, in her home. So she taught them how to read the Qaida. This is the basic book you need to read before you reach to the Quran. I will show one of the book which they used to use here in the initial days. So she also taught the girls how to pray, and also the ladies, non-Muslim Australian ladies who were married with the first generation of migrants. So she taught them how to pray, how to do the proper clothing in according with Islam, what you do when you go to the mosque, what you do when you stay at home, this sort of thing. So these two people, I will say, they are the change agent here, and they brought new perspective. And with them, the formal education of knowledge transmission also started. And both of them were very much keen to know about the Australian society, because they participated almost all local programs. If you read their biography and how they uh, teach those children like what they need to do. So in sorry, I will I'm jumping on. So I will show Isaac Imovic's book later on, and then in this early stage, again, Isaac Imovic played a very crucial role to train up the first imam, or the first religious leader of Southeast Queensland. His name was Haji Rain, again, the name given by the immigration officer, Haji Rain. He was born here. His father came here as a first generation of Muslim migrant. And then he was born here with a German mother. And then he was taught by Isaac Imovic to read the Quran and to train up to become a religious leader. So he actually became the unpaid imam for the Holland Park Mosque in 1950. And from 1950 to 1985, he was totally unpaid, and he served the community. He started so many things here. He started the first Islamic Sunday school where kids can go and read the book. He started the first adult Arabic class where the adult can go and read and learn about Islam. And he, in the early stage, he is the first person who could like read English, who can speak English fluently, because he was born here. Before him, most of the people, they, even though they born here, they were not interested. But somehow he, because of his father and grandfather, he was keen to know. And particularly when Isaac Imovic came here and became his mentor, he actually grow that interest to become the religious leader and serve the community for a long time. And these are the some images. One of the oldest family, basically the Isaac Imovic's daughter, she gave me. And the reason why I put here in this stage of the presentation and in this early stage, because if you look into the images, you can see the adaptation of Australianness and the Muslim identity, because the image is taken inside the Mohammedan mosque. So it was the marriage ceremony, and the bride was and the groom was all dressed up like Australian, not as a Muslim bride and groom. And also, the mosque was, when the Isaac Imovic came, the Imam Rain was trained up as an imam, and after 1950s, the trend of the mosque quite changed. So mosque again started to become a gathering space like now. Until 1950s, mosque was an occasional place to go, only when the fathers were around. But slowly, when the European Muslims started to came here, and they started to train up people, they tell them like, this is the place where you should spend most of your time if you want to stay within your religion, if you want to learn, or if you want to give this religion to your kids. So as a part of this thinking, the Muslim marriages started to happen into the mosque. But one thing we should remember, back then, none of the imams or religious leaders were the Muslim marriage celebrant registered. None of them were registered. So what happened? They used to get married into the mosque in a religious way and then go to the court or celebrant office to register the mosque officially. But what happened into this time after 1950s? Mosque become a place for everyone. Mosque started to become a gathering space. All these images are from the mosque. One of the image I really like, the first image from that right hand side. So there was no restriction of the dress code also in the mosque. Families can go into the mosque with the Australian dresses, or Western, not Australian, Western dresses. So there was no restriction. Mosque became that free. And luckily I was able to interview one of the daughter of Isaac Imovovic. So I asked her, she actually gave me all these images, and this is her wedding photograph. So I asked her, like, your father was the mentor of the first imam. So why didn't he tell people, like particularly the women, to dress up properly to come into the mosque? And the response was wonderful. She told me, look, my father wanted to make the place feel like home first, and then later everything will be settled down, he thought. So he never discouraged anyone to come mosque, whatever way they are. So people used to go there, people used to interact, people used to talk, they used to have feast there, and the weddings. Still now in the mosque, the wedding happens, but you will not see in this way. You will see the men and women will stay in the same room, but the seating arrangement will be separated. But at the beginning, there was no such restriction. People can talk, people can work. There was gender segregation, but not that much. And those were all part of this adaptation process. And also, if you want to survive in this minority context, back then, with all these restricted policies, you have to be careful, or you have to adapt in a way where you do not challenge the majority community. So these were the part of these things. So eventually what happened, when all these people, they started to realize and they started to identify themselves, like, no, I am not Muhammadin sect, rather my religion is Islam. So what happened in 1950s or late 50s, they changed the mosque name. So if you see now, the mosque name is Muslim Mosque. So Muslim means Muslim. So who are following Islam, they are Muslim. So from the Muhammadin, let me go back, from the Muhammadin mosque, in the late 50s, they have changed the name. So you can see a shift of the identity also. They wanted to have their own identity. They wanted to have the recognition. So they wanted to establish themselves as a Muslim, not as something else. Muhammad is the prophet, but not the religion. So the mosque name was changed. The mosque name was changed because the community was educated. They were given the understanding that no, this is not the religion, you are a Muslim. You should be identified as a Muslim, not as a Muhammadan sect. So from that stage, when the middle stage started, so a lot of literature, scholarly work happened here. And those were, the main purpose were to bring the community together, to make them understand what is Islam is. So the book Outline of Islamic Doctrine was written by Isaac Imovovic, and this book is a combination of what a Muslim should do in a minority context as a Muslim and as a citizen of that country. So it's a very interesting book, and the book was, I was like, it's a this much thick book, and he did all the research sitting here in Queensland in a time when there was no internet, when there was maybe the later system, the telegraph system was also limited. I wonder how he did all this research here, sitting here. But that book was very popular, and this book was read by the small groups into the mosque, just to understand the duty of a citizen, Australian citizen who is a Muslim also. So you can, and this book is available into the Bosnian mosque here now. They have a library, but this is a very, I will say, scholarly work in a time when most of the people they were confused with themselves, the Muslim people, because even though they started to realize, okay, my religion is Islam, my place is mosque to pray, and I have these principles, but they were confused with how to deal with this society, how to make presence of themselves as a Muslim in a minority context, because still then, because of the discrimination and those policies, they have their English name besides their Muslim names. But this book gives them those kind of thoughts, like as a Muslim, you should respect the laws of the country you are staying in. You should give the vote, you should pay the tax. All these things are written in this book, and he kind of bring examples from the Quran or the sacred book of Islam, uh, to make sure these are the duties of a Muslim. Doesn't matter the Muslim is living in a majority context or in a minority context. So after this book, um, these are the newsletters, Muslim newsletters. You can find out this newsletter into the State Library. The Crescent. This is a very interesting logbook, I would say. If you go through this series of magazine, newsletter actually, not magazine, you can see how many people came in and how many people passed away in a year, what they used to do, uh, what sort of engagement they arranged by the mosque, everything documented in this newspaper. And it was again, there was no printing machine sort of thing, so the Imam Rain used to typewrite it with few other people. They used to typewrite it, make used to make multiple copies and send out throughout the Queensland by post. And this is the newsletter where they can learn about the Islam also. In this newsletter, they used to publish articles, the importance of fasting, the importance of praying, the importance of being a woman in Islam, all this sort of thing. So these are again the knowledge transmission ways, but in a different way than only going to the mosque or into only going to the Sunday madrasas. These sort of things started to happen, and that also helped the Muslim community to access and learn about their religion. These are the few which we call qaida, or the basic books. So we need to, these are the alphabet, Arabic alphabets. We need to learn this alphabet before we start reading the Quran, which is the sacred book. And interestingly, again, I will say how they adopted the context. This is the interesting part of these books. If you look into the images are Western images. And if you look any standard qaida now, you will not find any images like this, because in Islam, we do not put images into the sacred books. But look into these images, the swimming suit wearing women, the horse thing, because then horse was a very common ride here, and also the in front of the books there is boys and girls playing around together. These are the things which kind of uh, like the book was the book was taught by Fakir Bayat, one of the international student. So he's in his 90s now. I asked him, like, why the images are like this, and his response was, look, I need to bring the kids into the classroom. I need to teach them the words, the alphabet, and I have to put these images. These books were customized, by the way. He used to print it and bring it from Pakistan, but the images, he used to tell them which images they need to put, just to make it realistic. Because this is Australia, children from Australia, they can relate the images with the alphabets when they know the images, otherwise not. So this is the interesting part. And activities started in this phase, like youth camping. These are the new activities they started and this mid stage. Halal movie night, again the term halal, because in Islam you are not supposed to see the commercial movies, but halal movies are something, there is no singing, there is no that kind of interaction between men and women. Those are the halal movies. So the mosque, this is also interesting, the mosque, the Holland Park Mosque used to organize this kind of movie screening to attract the kids into the mosque, so that people can go to the mosque, they can just spend time into the mosque. And also, this is another interesting thing I found. Uh, they started to sell house nearby the mosque, so that people live nearby the worship place. They can go to the mosque. They stay connected with their religion. So this was a project introduced by the Mosque Committee, the Holland Park Mosque Committee. And these are the common things, I think, for any religious group: the picnic arranged by the mosque, interfaith dialogue, and the ABC. They started to broadcast the Eid prayer. Eid is the main festival for the Muslims. Eid prayer and different activities of the mosque in this mid phase, particularly after 1960s. But the main three thing which was striking when I did the interviews, these three things came again and again: the youth camps, because camping was something as an Australian born people they would love to do, but they were not allowed to do. So the camping was arranged by the mosque. The parents feel that safe, yes, they can go into these camps because it will be gender segregated, the activities will be balanced for both male and female girls, both male and female. So from that perspective, the youth used to wait for these annual campings, when the mosque will announce the camping time. And they not only used to do the camping in Queensland, but there was a national level camping. So Muslims from around the Australia, different state of the Australia, they used to do camping together, so that they know each other, different communities, different state peoples. The halal movie and housing project. These three things were the main striking activities from this phase. So now I'm in the last phase, and also I can relate myself more with this phase, because when I did the field work, I can see how people still remember these times, and I was able to interview more people from this timeline. So when the last phase, or for me, I started the last phase from 1980 to onward. So there was already technology, but not like now. So you will find out this kind of we call it cassette. I don't know what you call it. So the cassettes, this cassette is about different prophets' stories and the recitation of Quran. These are the things the religious leaders. Yes, I will finish. The religious leaders, they used to bring here and distribute, because there was no YouTube back then. So people who struggle, or they who could not read in other language than English, they used to listen these records, these tapes. These tapes were all in English, and all the verses from the Quran, they were translated in English. As I do not have time, I will jump on now. So these kind of events now happened. And again, if you look into the poster, the flyer, you will see how they have accommodated the Australianness. You can spot the kangaroo over there, just before the Dean down under. But these are the events which are kind of completely different than the events used to happen in the early stage or in the mid phase. So those two phases were mostly informal, not structured religious knowledge transmission. They knew it, but they do not have the proper channel. And now there are diversified ways to do it. And particularly for my own work, I did field work with 2-3 groups, grassroots groups. One is Soul Seed, Faith Circle, and Islamic Dawah and Practice. They did, like, throughout the year, they do lots of events, and those events are targeted for the young Muslim people particularly. And these non-formal spaces for Islamic education now became most attractive spaces to go, apart from the mosque. So you do not have to go to the mosque to learn about Islam, but you can join these events and you can learn about Islam. Again, how the adaptation thing going on, you can see in Australia, you must do the surfing, and also at the same time you practice your religion. So you must play the football and you practice your religion. So a group of boys who were playing football during the time of prayer, evening prayer, they all sat together to pray. And you versus you, if you look into the flyer and how they fix the title, those are the things the young people feel attracted, because now the challenge for the young people is a little bit different. I will finish. Now the challenge is a little bit different. Now they understand their Muslim identity, but they struggle to navigate it, particularly when any situation happen regarding Islamophobic sort of thing. Because back then there was policies, there was laws, but there was no technology, no social media. So the events happened around the world. The wave came Australia very slowly. But now whatever happening around the world, immediately it also strike the Muslim life of Australian. So you versus you is kind of a workshop for the young people so that they can make themselves understand and fight those events and establish and navigate their Muslim identity into this context, into this Western context. And also these are the images from the Islamic schools. The schools are different, but their main aim is to teach young people Islam and the basic 5 pillars of Islam, but in operation they are different. And if you have any further interest about the Islamic schools, you can go to the SDS and see this series, the swap. So the few of the Islamic school students, they change school with the Catholic student and with the public school student, and they try to understand what is Islam and what is going on in an Islamic school. So this sort of thing, and these are all academic, like knowledge transmission thing. And as I have mentioned, not only Afghan came here, and not only the Sunni sect of Muslim people came here, but the Shia community also came here. One of the main tradition of Shia community is the blood donation, or the first image, this one. So this is the image I grew up with. So during the time of Muharram, during the time of the Karbala, the event happened in Islam. So to remember that event, uh, the Shia community people, they tend to bleed themselves and hurt themselves, because during that time, the grandson of Prophet Muhammad, they died. So to remember that event, the Shia community around the world, even if you look into the YouTube, you will see this image, the first one, like the people are bleeding and hurting themselves. So the Shia community people, when came here, the adaptation thing again happened. So in Australia, you actually cannot do any public procession like this. You cannot publicly hurt yourself or bleed yourself. So they still want to bleed, but in a positive way. So they started this blood donation activity on the day of Muharram. So this kind of adaptation continuously happening, and this kind of Australianness in terms of navigating the religion, rituals, traditions are every day happening. Even in my last 2 years of fieldwork, I have seen many changes. And the women role, that is also very interesting. From the first news clip, you can see people were not happy because women went into the mosque. I will leave. The women,
We
the
just
people,
have to have time for questions.
yeah, sure. The mosque was not happy because women enter into the mosque. But now, if you look into the last two images, the women-led madrasa or the Sunday school is very popular here, and women are also writing books where they are transmitting the religious knowledge, like Hannah's 100 hijab. So this is we call hijab. So to encourage the young people to maintain this principle, Muslim women from this community, Southeast community, they are writing books. And they are also using their knowledge of religious knowledge into the political sphere. I don't know how many of you have heard the Muslim Vote Matters. So Muslim Vote Matters is a brainchild of how Islam is very much connected with political activities also. So this platform, and very recently with the Palestine and Gaza thing, the Muslim community of Southeast Queensland, they tend to make people understand as a Muslim, this is your right also to become politically active. So I will finish now. This is one image, last image from the Eid festival. So the Muslim community here is this much vibrant. They are not like the camelier I have seen in my laptop screen back home. So the life is here very vibrant, and every day they adopt, they try, and they navigate themselves as a Muslim here because of this knowledge transmission. Thank you so much.